Hi, and welcome back to the Global Holistic Coaching Podcast. This is The Conversation Continues. And with Valentine's Day just around the corner and this buzz phrase of self-love, we thought it would be a great time to kind of get into what is self-love and give some concrete advice on how to get there. We're going to be talking about why it's important to embrace this new concept, looking at the correlation between confidence and salaries, making more money, advancing your career, and also the link between self-love, confidence, and being attractive to other people. Today, I'm here with Lisa Goodwin, who's going to get us started, and I am Gina Goodwin Riley. Let's go.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think self-love is always a very interesting topic. I mean, this is something that sounds like it would be easy to understand. However, if you're anything like me, when I was introduced to the concept of self-love, I personally thought it kind of strange. I mean, this is, probably over 30 years ago. But when I was doing my own trainings and studying with different teachers, any teachers that were really good always addressed in personal growth the importance of self-love. But it took me years to even, kind of get what it meant. Like self-love sounded a little like almost narcissistic. And
ooh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like I almost thought it was better to be humble but self-love is not about narcissism. It's not about being self-absorbed. Self-love is actually establishing like a foundation because you can't give away what you don't own. Totally. And when we address maybe the lack of self-love, when we're actually not noticing that we don't treat ourselves that good, then we don't have a comparison. And what do I mean by that? So let's say the best you could treat yourself or the best relationship you could have with yourself is like right here. And let's say the worst is right here. And you come in maybe about right here. Not the worst, not the best, right about here. So that's your bar. And now if somebody comes along, you get into a relationship and they treat you right here, still not up here, but better than you treat yourself, you're going to think it's a great relationship. And you're going to think that it's so much better, than you treat yourself. You're going to think it's so much better that you may think and miss, any signs of an unhealthy relationship and not realizing that, wow, there's somewhere else to dwell. We'll get more into that as we talk along. But what do you think about that, Jade?
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up, when you first heard the buzzword or the buzz phrase, self-love, you thought, well, you kind of had this narcissistic reaction. Working one-on-one in a clinical mental health setting, I deal with a lot of people who come in with like anxiety and depression, and I get a lot of questions about how to attract a partner, how to work on the relationship. And exactly what you just said is that without kind of embracing all parts of yourself and kind of exploring where your insecurities are coming from and maybe, some self-forgiveness and believing that you deserve the love that you're looking for, you're not going to get it, right? And so that's where you're skipping a step if you're going straight to looking for relationships and intimacies that is meaningful if you don't have that meaningful connection with self first. And when we start kind of getting into it in individual sessions, I do get that question a lot of, when we talk about self-confidence is that, well, isn't it, I was taught growing up, isn't it like if you're too confident, you're conceited and that you need to come across as more humble. And that's not really what we're talking about when we're talking about self-love and confidence, right? And I define confidence personally for myself and in my practice is being willing to take a first step, even if you might fail. And then I would also add to that being unattached to an outcome, whether or not it's in a relationship or a raise or whatever it is that you're looking for. When you know that you're going to be okay, no matter what, when you really believe that the universe has your back and that, this or something better is happening for me, that's where the confidence is made, right? That's where it starts to bake. That's where what we're talking about with self-love is knowing that you're not your accomplishments, separating self from action in that way. And then also being in a space of willingness to not be perfect, to fail,
Right.
to, you know, and Carl Jung talks a lot about shadow self and shadow work. And that's part of this, I would say too, is because we need to kind of look at the darker parts of ourselves that we have either repressed because we were told at a young age that it didn't, you know, suit, let's say, this is a big common one, like women shouldn't be angry. So a lot of girls are taught to repress anger, and boys are taught, unfortunately, it doesn't suit a male to be sad. So men tend to process their feelings more in anger and repress their sadness, and women tend to process their feelings more in sadness and repress their anger. But all of this is parts work, right? Of being at a space where we can look at all of the parts of ourselves, even the ones that we've been taught that might be shameful, and embrace in a different light, right? And that's kind of like the space that I think we're talking about today when we talk about self-love, is this more meaningful exploration of self.
Yeah, I think it's important to consider, the people around you that you love, when they mess up or, or perhaps they're not living their lives to their fullest potential. And how do you speak to them? Like, when you love someone, don't you hold space and grace for them? And don't you give them a little bit of encouragement? Or, if they mess up, maybe, you'd say something like, well, it might not have been your best choice, but hey, you're human. We're all a work in progress. And so the reason that self-love is so important is so that we can learn how to hold that space and grace for ourselves, so that we can start to talk to ourselves just like we would talk to our own best friend or a family member that we care about. And, it's not about treating yourself more or better than anyone else. It's just not treating yourself less than anyone else. And here's how we get into how it affects our relationships and our careers. Because if we, on some level, don't believe we deserve, that quality relationship, or it's as good as we're going to get, or we don't believe we deserve that raise or that acknowledgement at work, whatever you believe you're right, you'll tend to, attract evidence to back it up. So the other thing too is when we have a lack of self-love, sometimes not even consciously, we have this void inside ourselves that we're constantly looking for a person, place, or thing to give us validation.
Yeah.
Then we're at the effect of what other people think about us. And we're looking for these external circumstances or relationships to fill that void. So what we're talking about here is learning how to be self-referred and to recognize our qualities and even our shortcomings, but again, we're all a work in progress. And then, getting into a place that we recognize that we do deserve, all the love, compassion, forgiveness that we give or that we would want for anyone else. It's just putting ourselves, I like to say on the roster, making sure we take a turn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say that a lot too in my private practice of like until you feel like you deserve all the things you're looking for truly on a core level, you'll get in your own way, because whatever you think you're genuinely deserving of, you'll prove yourself right, and that's how we get stuck in these patterns and relationships where we will choose a partner that doesn't respect us, either by cheating or verbal abuse or whatever the case may be, if we don't believe we're worthy of more. And so that work that we're talking about, and I want to kind of define space and grace, because I say that all the time. We use it a lot. It's, in our podcast, and space is giving yourself the time to look into some of these issues, because it's really genuinely, I had mentioned shadow work, that can take a lifetime to really get at the parts of self that you feel shame around, that need that grace part. And that grace part is being able to give all parts of yourself kind of that warm hug, that warm, loving, nurturing embrace that you would a child, or that you would, if you don't have a child, maybe a pet or maybe a loved one, right? Being able to look at those parts of ourselves with that grace. So that's what we mean is spaces, giving yourself the time to explore some of this, and grace is giving yourself a little bit of patience and just kind of like, hey, you're human too. And sometimes it's recognizing what we've been through, right? And giving ourselves, that reframe of what we've been through a lens of strength and resilience, because I think that a lot of our listeners have been through a lot, and you don't remember how strong and resilient you are sometimes. And that is certainly part of self-love, is being able to reframe your experiences and remember how strong you've been, how resilient you've been in the good parts, times where you've succeeded. We tend to focus more on times we fail, times where you were love and kindness and inspiration, instead of times where you said the wrong thing or you were hurtful.
Right.
And I'm always amazed at how often we will spend beating ourselves up about saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing or failing, and completely forget the successes.
Yeah, that's something I think that I'd like to really touch on right now. You use the term, beating ourselves up. Uh, And we do that. And when you love someone, you don't beat them up. When you love someone, you want to inspire and build them up. And so I think the first step, if we're going to give some tips, right here, right now, I think the first coaching tip I want to give is start to check in simple ways of with the self-talk. Just check in. There's different ways of beating yourself up. And the one I'm going to address right now is with the self-talk. Even little things like, oh my God, I'm so stupid, or I can never, I can never do that, or I never have follow-through. Just start to notice the little phrases and ask yourself, is that something I would say, to a loved one? And perhaps maybe you could just, reframe it, rephrase it, or add to it. If you're in a pattern of negative self-talk and you say, oh, I never do anything right, you could just stop yourself and just say, well, sometimes I do things right. Just or ask yourself, is that really true? Because I never do anything right. Well, maybe I'm like everybody else. Maybe sometimes I do things right, and maybe sometimes I don't, and I'm a work in progress.
And I just want to add to, can I just add to that too, is that you can challenge the thought with evidence of the alternative, right? So like what I was just saying about like dwelling more on when you were strong than when you failed. So when you have that kind of negative self-talk come up, look for evidence of the opposite, because whatever you look for, you will find. Go
That's
ahead.
right.
I just wanted to add that.
Well, that's it. And also too, the negative self-talk, I'm not just referring to specifically how you speak to yourself, because negative thought patterns, affect our relationship with ourselves. Like if we complain a lot, if we tend to be very critical and judgmental of others, remember, you're going to spend more time with you from the day you're born till the day you die. And my suggestion here is becoming your own best roommate. Like, do you really want to live with a roommate that's super judgmental and critical? Do you really want to live with somebody who complains all the time? So if we're talking about building a healthy relationship with the self, then I'm going to inspire you to become the person you'd want to live with, because that's how we foster that positive self-image, where you start to actually like yourself. You actually start to feel good about yourself. And what happens in a relationship when you first meet someone, you like them, you kind of want to hang out with them, you want to be around them. Next thing you know, you're feeling stronger feelings. And then there's maybe admiration and respect and love. Well, we want to start to pay attention to how we can foster that relationship with ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. And adding to what you just said about the importance of wanting to, eventually get to a space where you are your favorite person, right? Is that it takes the fear out of being alone when you love being with,
100%.
right? And
So
like when
important to what you're saying. Yep.
Yep. And when your mind is the best space you can think of to be, it's not scary. It takes the fear out of everything. And so when you have that that non-attachment, you do end up creating, like we've talked about in other podcasts, what you're out for anyway. So all of this is interconnected. And I get this question a lot, is like, where should I start? You know, when I'm doing this work, where should I start? And this is such a great place to start. We're just starting to audit the way that you're thinking about things, not just about yourself, but if you're being kind of negative to others too. And, you know, are you being more of a curmudgeon and embracing that curmudgeon part of yourself, or are you being more of a person who's kind of seeing situations from a positive light? Because we always have the opportunity to decide how we're seeing a person or how we're seeing a situation. So really starting to pay attention to your own experience in your own body and your own mind, because, you know, we've talked about this in other podcasts before, but what we think is so connected to how we feel, and how we feel is so connected to our choices and our behaviors, and our choices and behaviors are so connected to our character, and our character goes back to what we believe about ourselves, right? So it's all interconnected. So we really want to start looking and paying attention to all of this.
So I think, you know, really what we can hope for today, where it's just, you know, a little spotlight, a very small spotlight on the importance of this buzzword, self-love, and really understand that it's more than this 20-minute or however long this podcast is. And you know, gee, I think we do a great job with our self-love workshop, and it's something that we can dive deeper and really spend the time to give exercises, things you can do, little by little steps that you can take to really encourage and start to experience, you know, that a feeling that feels good to be you, you know, where you feel good in your own skin, and where, you know, you can't fake this stuff, you know, because if it's underlying, it will ripple into other areas of your life, be it career, relationships. Gina used the term self-confidence. Yeah, but what we're talking about is standing in your power and really living into, you know, the best version of you. I know that saying's being used a lot, but it's a great saying, you know, living into our best selves. You know, so G, can you talk a little bit about the self-love workshop, how people could actually, you know, participate and do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so our self-love workshop is online, virtual, 3-day workshop with 21 days of self-love and transformation workbook. So you can actually do this workshop at home, self-paced, for 21 days to really help you reset. We do explore self-confidence, how to build self-confidence, how to forgive, how to set healthy boundaries, how to, you know, really give yourself permission to disappoint, you know, these kind of freeing things that we were touching on today. And we have a date yourself exercise and self-care corner, you know, to help you choose activities and start to kind of get to know the things that you are passionate about today. Because we often live in the past and think of the things that we used to do. And so really updating and really getting to know who you are now. And that is really going to be the most bang for your buck, because we're offering that right now for just $21. So you can hit the link below if you're watching us on YouTube and go directly to our website to register for that. Or if you're listening to us on Spotify, you can visit us at www.globalholisticcoaching.com, and you can just get to under the retreats and workshops section. We have a lot of great stuff of what's coming up. And I say that at Global Holistic Coaching, you know, if you're listening to us on Spotify, we'll take you to all of our social media accounts. We have some really nice inspirational things going on every day. We have a wonderful team behind us that is working on that on the daily. So check us out and like and subscribe to our channels. It helps us create more content for you and keep it free. And also, you know, just thank you to all of the questions that are coming. You know, we have wonderful questions that come every week, and that's where we get our content. So keep the questions coming.
Yeah, and I'd just like to end with how nice would it be if we could live our lives every day feeling as though it's Valentine's Day, and just just representing, you know, living in love for ourselves, love for others, and love for all our relationships, a relationship to self, relationship to family. You know, sometimes we think Valentine's Day is just for couples, partnerships, mates, you know, but really I'd like you to consider it really can represent and be symbolic of love in a holistic way. So
Absolutely.
Look forward to sharing more with all of you. Thanks for
wait, hold on, I'm adding to Valentine's Day. If you're saying every day is Valentine's Day, then every day we have permission to eat dark chocolate, which I did read recently is antioxidant. So I'm just gonna throw that out there of embracing some more dark chocolate.
I a little sea salt and almonds. Yeah, I'm persuaded.
That's my favorite mix. Yes. All right. Thank you guys for joining. See you next week. Bye.